Found on Channel 8 with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV on. Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8 with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Good evening and welcome to the September 29th, 2025 Town of Exeter Select Board meeting. As the hour is 6:30, I'm calling the meeting to order. First, the board will hopefully go into non-public for about a half hour, at which point we'll return around 7 o'clock and start our regular business meeting. I would entertain a motion at this time then to enter into non-public under RSA 91A 32C and L.
So moved.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Selectman Chartran?
Aye.
Vice Chair Cowan?
Aye.
Selectman Gilman?
Aye.
Clerk says aye, Mr. Chair.
Aye, the motion passes 5-0. The board will be going into non-public. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in
You're fine.
to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well. Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Bi-Weekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well. Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well. Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8. With all your school...
Good evening and welcome back to the September 29th, 2025 Town of Exeter Select Board meeting. The board was meeting in non-public for the last half hour, but we're back to commence our regular business meeting. And I'd like to start by saying good evening to my colleagues on the board, respective town staff, those in attendance here this evening, and certainly those watching at home on TV or on YouTube. We have a really exciting agenda this evening. We are going to be hearing from the tree committee. We have some regular town business that the board needs to consider. And we're also going to have a presentation of the draft general budget and the water and sewer budget from our interim town manager, Melissa Roy, who will be presenting on behalf of both she and Finance Director Corey Stevens. They've worked very hard on this with the department heads and finalized it sometime on Friday afternoon. And as is custom, they present to the board on this evening, and then they'll be presenting in greater detail to the Budget Recommendations Committee this coming Wednesday, and that'll be the kickoff for the BRC and the work that they will do with this budget. The Budget Recommendations Committee wraps up their work sometime in November. The budget comes back to the board with their recommendations. The board works on it a little bit. We have our budget hearing the third Tuesday in January. And then after that, it goes to the voters not once but twice at deliberative session, which is the first Saturday in February. And then finally, the second Tuesday in March at the election. So the reason I'm giving that introduction at great length is we are honored again to have Mr. Jordan from PEA and his American Politics and Public Policy class who come and visit us at least once a year. We love it when you come, and again, welcome. So it's a great agenda for you to be here. You're going to get to hear what one of our committees is doing to make our town look beautiful, and then you're going to get to see how the town operates with the general budget. I'm going to pause for a second and ask if there's any public comment. And if there's public comment, then you could step up to the podium and state your name and your address for the record.
Hi, folks. Thank you. My name is Silas Richards, and I've lived in town nearly all my life. I wanted to share my concerns about Exeter's lack of progress on the Complete Streets implementation. Since at least 2016, Complete Streets has been in our capital improvement program and tied to the 2018 Master Plan's Connect action item. Despite this, major roadway projects, including Epping Road, Portsmouth Avenue, Front Street, and more, have moved forward without consistently integrating Complete Streets design principles. The gap is most visible on Epping Road, where extensive roadwork has failed to provide safe avenues for the folks residing in the hundreds of new housing units. Families and 55-plus folks moving into these developments lack safe sidewalks, bike lanes, or crossings in order to reach schools, stores, and their nearby parks. The new roadway design provides the illusion of safety, but it is not contiguous, nor does it provide equitable transportation options, nor does it slow down traffic on that corridor. Similarly, new growth along Portsmouth Avenue brings more residents into areas without safe connections to basic destinations like grocery stores, pharmacies, or the downtown. Parents are forced to drive children short distances that they should be able to walk or bike, which further adds to the congestion and creates risks for all road users. The absence of safe walking and biking networks isn't just a matter of convenience, it's an equity issue. There are many households that include children, seniors, or residents who do not drive. Without safe options, these residents are effectively excluded from accessing schools, recreation, and essential services independently. Our new bicycle and pedestrian master plan, shaped by over 800 community survey responses, makes clear that residents overwhelmingly want safer and more connected infrastructure. Exeter cannot afford to keep deferring action. every major roadway project is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to create a safer, more equitable street for all Exeter users. I urge the town to formally adopt and implement the Complete Streets policy, and if I can, I'd like to request that the next meeting agenda include a dedicated update on Exeter's bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you walk away, well said. And I agree with you. Very well said. We are in the process of working towards complete streets. There was a warrant article in the last election. I cannot promise that this will be on the next agenda.
Okay.
But we can, before the end of the year, bring an update as to where we are with that.
Thank you.
And if you would like to email me, if you go on the website, my email address, if you would like to email me your contact information, I will make sure that I let you know when that meeting is, and we'd like to have you here to hear our update and to add whatever you'd have to add.
Most excellent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Folks.
Thanks, sir.
Is there any other public comment? Okay. Before we start moving into our general business and our discussion items this evening with the tree committee and the budget, I'd like to allow 10 or 15 minutes if any of the students want to come up to the podium. If you have any questions of the board about the town, about local government, or anything else that we might be able to answer, we'd like to do that. So don't be shy. Mr. Jordan always promises me there'll be at least a couple questions.
Hi, my name's Robin Davies. I'm a current senior. I'd love to know what your relationship with the state government is like. We've been talking about the different levels of government. I'm curious how you interact.
Well, we have a state rep who's on our select board, so maybe she can answer that question.
Actually, I tried to inform the board of what actions are happening that particularly affect a municipality. And so I will give a report from that side of the table because this is a nonpartisan group, but my position at the State House is a partisan position, so I don't want people to think I'm electioneering when I'm sitting here. So I'll bring an update of what bills are happening, ask for support from the board, ask, can I write a letter, or will you write a letter of support or testify? I ask every department head every year to tell me what they need for, or what they think of the need for a bill. If they want something to change, state law to change, in how they interact with the state law. I ask them to please submit something to me, and they don't. I guess everything's going fine. Or typically they don't. And I ask the select board and folks, out on the street, what don't you like about what's happened so far in the state? And I'll say election law and the budget are the two biggest things that people have commentary on. So I guess that's our interaction right now. So it's.
Can I add a little bit to that too? Well, first of all, thank you, Julie, for your service, and thank you for that excellent question, because I think it's really confusing for folks when they are, living and participating in a town government to also understand that a lot of the budget discussions and decisions that we have to make are implemented by the state, and they are forced down on us. So, for example, property taxes and education funding, which is not something that this board takes up, but we have to abide by policy changes that include, 82 different fees that are raised in Concord that we then have to implement. And that's not a policy decision that we are making, but that is an interaction that people are having with their town government, even though the state level is making those kind of decisions. And we also are really in a position where, Selectwoman Gilman talked about voting rights. So the state will restrict voting rights at the state level, and then the policy is enacted at the local level. So when you go to register to vote, all of a sudden, all of these changes have been made that we have to carry out, that we didn't make, and the interaction is with us versus with the state. So it's really complicated. It's complicated for people to understand who they're voting for at this level is not necessarily making the decisions and the policy choices that people are feeling every day. And it is a complicated situation, and each town is sort of left to figure this out by itself. In a lot of other states, there's a lot of county collaboration and cooperation, and in New Hampshire, we have a very, very desegregated system, so each town does its own thing. That's probably a lot of information.
No, thank you for putting that part into this too, because I'm just talking about our direct relationship to the select board, but Selectwoman Cowan really illustrated how our personal property taxes, and because that's the major source of income for the state, what they do up there, like these fees that were raised, and don't get me started on the school funding, is all gets pushed down to us. Almost everything now, or is affected by people that live in our town and come to us because it's on their tax bill. They don't see what the state's asking of us.
Understood. Thank you.
Just one thing that is a major difference between town municipal government and state government, we're very nonpartisan at the municipal level. None of us are elected as, there's no party designation, whereas at the state level, it's highly partisan. So that disconnect is a bit of a, up in Concord, everything's Republicans and Democrats. Here, there's none of that. So that's a big difference.
Although there was a bill to change that.
God help us.
I'm just going to throw in one more thing about funding, especially for the budget process, which we're starting this evening. Grants, we do interact with our representatives for grants, the departments and things like that, but also with our federal representatives who help support us when we're putting in a grant for infrastructure, which is a lot of money, and without grants, very difficult to get done. So.
Great question.
Thank you.
In addition to our local reps, and I'll just chime in too, the town of Exeter belongs to the New Hampshire Municipal Association. We're a member of that, which is essentially a legislative lobby on behalf of municipalities. And they alert us to any and all bills that would affect anything at the local level, and we attach those bulletins to our packet, and oftentimes we bring them up and ask Selectwoman Gilman, and there are times where we, as the local, body, will either offer oral or written testimony on bills. So there's also that communication piece too. Thanks for your question.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes. Let's go.
Good evening. My question is in connection to some of the readings that we've been doing in our class. Some of the interesting readings that we've been doing concern, I think, as Robin mentioned, the differences between local government and national government, and local politics and national politics. Another reading that we had was talking about the rise of something called political hobbyism, where it seems a lot of young, especially college-educated people, citizens, are more inclined to be discussing national politics than actually taking concrete action at the local level. And so that kind of turns me to my question, which is, in terms of engagement on the local level, what is your all's experience with engagement on the local level, and if that engagement has decreased or increased in the last few years, and if it has decreased or has changed, then what is the demographic in terms of age?
Can I lead off?
Please.
We took a huge hit, and we could not run our municipal government without the volunteers that staff up the committees, commissions, and boards that advise the select board. We took a huge hit in volunteerism on those committees, commissions, and boards during COVID pandemic. Since that has ended, we've been recruiting hard, and we've started to fill those back up. So that's a quick kind of snapshot of where we are. We're getting closer to having full committees, commissions, and boards now in the municipal government.
Can I ask a...
One thing to add on to Selectman Chartrand's comments was that during COVID, we were all separate, but we had the public watching online, and we could see the list, and they'd raise their hands and ask questions, and we had much more local participation in those than we do in live action. So I really miss that, and there's been a bill every year for, can we please be remote, and so far none have passed.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of the 20-something demographics that volunteer, not nearly as much as I would love to see, but they tend to be pretty busy. We just keep reaching out. We use Exeter TV to do their thing. They cover meetings, they do meeting minutes, they do bi-weekly reports. Any suggestions any of you have on how we can get a younger demographic to come out and volunteer, please send them our way.
So to that end, if you look at what our neighboring state did in Massachusetts after the pandemic died down, they're not having nearly the problem that we're having here in New Hampshire filling committees and boards because they've elected to continue to allow a Zoom option. And in New Hampshire, we don't have that option. And so I've talked to some of my, colleagues and peers in Massachusetts, and they're not having that problem because folks are able to Zoom in and participate on committees and boards that way. And of course, when you have that option, younger people who have younger kids that may not be able to be here from 7 to 9 o'clock can Zoom in. People who have mobility issues that may not be able to travel at night are able to Zoom in. Folks who may have day jobs but can participate for an hour or two on a day committee or board. So I think if New Hampshire could be a little bit more open in allowing, that Zoom option, we would not have the problem that we have because Selectman Chartrand is right. One of the core functions of running this town is our fantastic volunteers that help us out.
Can I add something to that? I think we can't in New Hampshire underscore enough how much the state government is run by volunteers. So you probably all have learned about the state legislature, right? The third largest legislative body in the English-speaking language, 400 state House members. We have a former one right there and a current one right there. They're paid $100 a year.
Mileage. Plus mileage.
Plus mileage.
I'm sorry, it's a little
okay.
bit of a joke almost.
And then
because it's not
the state Senate, which is also, it's 24 members, it's the upper chamber, and they're paid $100 a year as well. So who can actually run and serve in those roles, which are essentially full-time for at least half the year? And then you trickle that down to all of the boards. We are paid substantially more than State House, but not a living salary at all. Yeah. And I think if we all calculated out how much money we make per hour, it's pennies based on how much time we serve. And so there is a real there's a real premium on volunteerism and stepping up. And that, if you think about, okay, who has time to volunteer and what kind of families can afford to have some, if you're a dual income family that you need both incomes to pay for your mortgage or pay for daycare or whatever, there's not a ton of time. And so that is something that our state is literally run by volunteers anywhere, up through elected office all the way up to the top. And then there's also the problem with how much attention local decisions and local policies are made. We're lucky to be joined by Brandon Ng, who's in the back. He's reporting on us. But we oftentimes will conduct our business where we are making huge policy and financial decisions with literally nobody in this room. And it's, I'm not blaming anybody. It's really hard to find time out of your schedule to, your caretaking and having kids and having a job. And so how can you even know? And that's, so when we think about, okay, what dominates the news? It's the federal stuff. It's the national stuff. And it's really hard to inject a local dialogue, even though the state legislature and we make the decisions that really impact people's day-to-day lives. And so how do you shine a spotlight on that? How do you cover 400 state reps? I don't know. I haven't figured it out. Right. But I think that really impacts participation. And so when we're elected with the fewest number of voters who show up to vote. And our municipal elections, we actually have, 25 to 30% of registered voters show up, which is wildly high compared to the,
That would be a good year.
That's right. That's a really good year when there's a lot of, things on the ballot. But it's, when you think about voter participation and voter turnout in presidential elections. I'm sure you'll be discussing that and you'll look that up. New Hampshire shows up. New Hampshire is always one of the top 5 or 6 in the country of who shows up to vote. So it's really a function of nobody's paying attention because the system is designed not to be able to pay attention. So I think those things are important to put a premium on and not blame people for just not, for having busy lives and not being able to spend the time.
I will like to just to throw in about the budget process. And we've invested a lot of resources with Exeter TV to try to make it another way for the public to be informed. They don't have to come to our meetings. All of our budget meetings are televised. They can't ask questions, but we have the whole process where it comes back to the select board. We have public hearings. We very rarely get public input at that point. It's sad, but we do try to find ways of communicating because our local budget process is so important. It's literally taking a puzzle and trying to get the pieces to fit without too much being pushed down the road, so to speak, because that accumulates after a while too. So it's a process.
And I think anecdotally, speaking from the State House, when I'm serving my 5th term, and they're 2-year terms, and my first year there, because of the lack of pay, and so who can live on $100 a year, people's average age was late 70s up to 90. And so I felt like I was bringing the average down when I was elected. But in the last few years, because of the introduction of online college courses, we've seen a younger demographic coming in. Every year there's more. So that's encouraging. And they all have a line they want to, they have something they want to contribute, and they're trying their best to do it at a younger age rather than wait for the rest of us to catch up with them.
Good question.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you.
Hi, Select Board members. My name is Truman Yee, and I'm a senior at PEA. My question is mostly directed to those of you who have served at the State House, but also open to anybody else. You mentioned how this role in the Select Board is nonpartisan, whereas in the State House, it is partisan. In our class, we've talked a lot about the pitfalls of partisanship and how discourse might be better if we're trying to bridge the gap between the different political parties. So I'm wondering, how would you reflect on nonpartisan action in the Select Board compared to partisan action in the State House, and how has working in a nonpartisan environment affected your idea of politics?
That's a good question. I think that if the first point is if we went to nonpartisan state elections, there would probably be a lot better discussion than there is right now. Right now, the way the House is divided, people don't want to talk to each other, and a particular group is strong-arming the rest of their party. So it's even harder. I have friends that I know would vote with me, but in the end, they don't. And so that's very difficult. And the difference here is that we do talk to each other, and we do argue and come to a consensus typically about how we want to go forward on things. Yeah. But at the state level, because it's partisan, you can really be stonewalled. And there's a lot more, buttonholing people in the corner or the mailroom and saying, can you please, help me with this one? And they'll say, okay, but I'm not going to co-sponsor a bill, and they won't put their name on it. And then there are a lot of roll calls, and you can see who voted with you. And sometimes I'm disappointed, sometimes I'm surprised.
We have quorum issues. We can't do that back door,
right? Yeah.
Back room.
Yeah. But if you and I've this is my personal opinion, with technology and with texting and all of that, I personally have found in my 55 years of living that no matter whether it's local, state, or federal, nobody talks to each other anymore. So as Selectwoman Gilman said, we sit here together. We have to work together. We like working together, but we have to sit here. And it works best when you're in a room with somebody, and even if you don't agree, and there have been times that, we haven't always agreed, when you're forced to sit with somebody in a room, it's going to ensure a little bit more civility than what you're seeing when you're not forced to have to look somebody in the eye and be respectful when you can just text or anything like that. And I think that if you go back, I'll say in the old days, even at the federal level, you had both sides of the party. They were friends. Like, they'd go out to dinner or drinks. I mean, but now, so I think at this level, this is why this works, is that, we happen to all, get along, but we're together. We have to be, or we should be, civil and respectful to each other.
And the gamesmanship isn't there.
Yeah, the other thing, it's not just the select board that's nonpartisan. When we interview volunteers to stock the committees and commissions and boards, we're not asking anyone what their party is. We're asking what their qualifications are to serve on that committee in their life experience. So there's no mention of party there either. So it's not just the select board. It goes throughout the entire organization, especially the volunteers.
There's also the growth of people, as we were talking about how do you engage younger people. What I see most in the State House is someone that started as on the planning board or the select board, and then they make the jump into state politics. And I'll use Congressman Pappas as an example. He was a state representative and a state senator, then the executive council, and then he ran for Congress. So there are pathways some people take. Some just try to jump right up there. So you see that, and then also I would say in the last 2 terms, or 4 terms, I guess, how the state has been divided has pretty much been the same as the federal government. A few years ago, when the House was almost tied, the State House was almost tied. And so when somebody would ask me how are things going at the State House, I'd just say, well, look at what's happening in Washington, and that'll tell you what's happening in the state.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have time for one more if there's another question.
All right. Mr. Chairman, you mentioned specifically how people don't talk to each other anymore, or the evolution in American media, and I'd be very curious to hear from all of you how you think the American media has evolved, both at the national and local level.
Wow. Well, because there's so many different elements from when I started as I'm 63, so I've experienced really nonpartisan news, and we don't really have that anymore. So I think that affects a lot of the discourse, more than I realize. I think even in the last year or so, I've come to realize it's much more in the negative than I had even anticipated before. But it's not just the media. It's the way we do or don't talk to each other. I think social media itself is a really negative thing that's happened. It could have been such a wonderful tool, and I just don't see it as that anymore. I'm hoping it evolves into a better resource, but not right now. I don't see it. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I would be curious from you all, where do you get your news? Do you all read like New York Times or the Washington Post? Can you raise your hands if you do that? How many of you spend time on YouTube? How many of you listen to podcasts? How many of you listen to like long form podcasts and watch them on YouTube?
TikTok?
What about TikTok? I think.
Ask about Reddit.
Reddit.
Never heard of it.
No one on Reddit?
No, nobody's on Reddit.
There's one. Interesting.
There's one on Reddit.
Yeah.
I think I think it's really, really interesting. And how many of you have subscriptions to local New Hampshire-based newspapers? She does.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many of you have heard of Brendan Ing, who is our local? There, one. Okay.
How about local to their own local? Instead-
Yeah. Okay. So local to your own town or wherever.
Oh, wow, that's
Okay.
good to
And you
see.
still read it.
You don't read it, but you have a subscription. You have access.
You have access.
Maybe we're going to get them to read it more.
So, I mean, I think that this really illustrates the point because, one of the things a lot of times with legacy media and legacy newspapers, there are barriers, which totally makes sense because you should pay for information. And there are systems that have been created to serve you content and then pull you down an algorithmic path that you don't even totally realize. And so that is what is happening with YouTube, and that's what's happening with a lot of, I think, what we're seeing. And there is one side that has really heavily invested in that, and there is another side that hasn't even realized that is happening until probably pretty recently. And so I think that there's a lot to be said around who owns what media, who owns what platforms you're on, why they're keeping you there. And I don't think that they're keeping you there to red pill you. I think they're keeping you there to sell you stuff. And you're providing that by giving them your data. That's the thing that is happening. You're not paying for it with money, but you're paying for it with data. And so what do you want? How do you want to use your incredibly valuable capital? And I mean, that is a question I think you have to think about. And I think you have to really be smart and thoughtful about what kind of, how you're paying for things, even if you're not actually paying for them with money. And I think that is happening across the country with all different demographics. I think it's happening in a way that we don't totally understand. And I think it's changing our brain in a way that is like very scary.
Yeah. I will, podcasts for me I found more and more that I prefer, I vet them. But just one thing I will ask you, when you're reading any news, anything, always stop and think of intent, even if it's a few times throughout the course of an article, or give yourself some time to think before jumping to a conclusion or coming to a conclusion, okay? Really, intent is a big thing to think about for the rest of your lives. Okay.
I'd love to answer your question, but I take the nonpartisan nature of my work here very seriously, and if I answered it, I would be flying in the face of being nonpartisan, because the media has been made partisan as well. So I'm going to decline to answer for that reason.
All right. Well, thank you all very much.
Wait,
I think
I just
Selectwoman
want to
Gilman-
add
Yeah.
one other thing is, especially with the social media and the platforms and as Selectwoman Cowan said, the paths that you get either dragged down or just don't know you're falling into the hole, is the old adage that when print media was dominant was that, consider the source. If you don't really trust the source, then don't trust what they've posted.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Good question.
Well, thank you all for your questions. And if any of you ever want to talk with us, again, our emails are on the website, and we'd love to either meet with you or take your questions or anything like that. Mr. Jordan, thank you. And hopefully you stick around and hear the presentation from the tree committee and on our budget. So
Everything's televised, so you can always go back to your rooms and the links on the town website, all of the meetings, most of the meetings.
So before we, go ahead.
Is this the largest class you've ever brought to us?
I think there's
Because-
two here.
It's two.
Two.
Two classes. I think I've had two.
This is good attendance.
They all came.
Okay.
They all came. Nice night.
Well, Thank you all for coming, and thank you for your questions. Before we get to the tree committee, we just have 2 procedural things. First, I'd ask the board if there are any amendments or revisions to our regular meeting minutes of September 15th, 2025. Nope, okay. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the Town of Exeter Select Board regular meeting minutes of September 15th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And we have a recommendation from the Planning Board to appoint one of their alternates, Marty Kennedy, to a voting member that was recently vacated by the retiring Pete Cameron.
Yes.
And so therefore, I would entertain a motion to appoint Marty Kennedy as a voting member of the Planning Board with a term to expire.
Oh, we
that?
only have Pete's here. We don't have his.
4/30/27.
Thank you. A term to expire 4/30/27.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. For our class folks here, the Select Board, in addition to the work we do serving on the board, we also act as representatives to all of the committees and boards that the town has. So we split them up. And I have the privilege and the pleasure to be the Select Board rep of the Tree Committee, which is a subcommittee of the Conservation Commission. And I can't play favorites, but it's an enjoyable way to spend the first Tuesday of every month. And you never leave the Tree Committee meeting not smiling and being happy. So I'm happy to introduce our Conservation and Sustainability Coordinator, Kristen Murphy, along with the Chair of the Tree Committee, Eileen Flockhart, and we have members of the Tree Committee here as well. So good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
When I look at where we started way back in 2019, when trees were being cut down and we panicked and we said, what could we do? And the suggestion came after we brought our woes to the Select Board. They said, well, why don't you start out with Tree City USA, see what the requirements are. And that's where we took off from there. And over the course of the last 6 years or so, we've managed to, you've probably seen this, I don't know if
That was in the packet.
that was in the packet, but over the course of the last 6 years and going, we're still ticking. We've planted 52 trees, some of them bigger than others. Some little herby elms that, have doubled in size, so people keep encouraging me, saying, no, it's going to be okay, we'll be all right. We've done a number of things. I'm going to let Kristen explain some of these. We've been able to achieve Tree City USA qualification 6 years running, and we've been able to get growth awards by doing a couple of extra things that we thought were interesting and would expand our knowledge. And so I'm going to turn a little bit of this over to Kristen, because she really put this thing together, and I don't do these things, so we'd like to thank Kristen for all the stuff she does.
Thank you. So I won't spend a lot of time going through this, but for the audience and those perhaps watching, it's just sort of like a snapshot of what the Tree Committee has done since they were established in 2019. And then the backside is a new project that we accomplished through additional funding that this committee supported and the voters voted for to create some new software for us. So just to add, I guess, a little bit of perspective and color, there's only 16 communities in New Hampshire that are Tree City communities. So it's not a common thing to be a tree city. It takes an annual commitment to host events and push forward agendas and have oversight for tree management in your community. And the growth award that we have gotten every single year is even more rare. There's only 6 of those communities that have had growth awards. And And I think it really speaks to the dedication of this committee. They've met every single month, I think except for one meeting very recently, every single month through COVID and otherwise, and has built relationships with the utility. So decisions about the trimming trees within the utility corridor come to the committee, and has really built and fostered, I think, open communication. So let me just talk a little bit about the dashboard that we now have. This lives on our website. In the past, we used to just have a static report of how many trees we have in our community and what do they look like today. This dashboard has that same snapshot of what percentage of our trees are in good condition, what percent are poor or dying or have maintenance needs. And so that really tells a very important tale. And if you look at that, it's substantial. So 54% of our trees are good currently. That's kind of scary. It tells you that we need to be paying a bit more attention to our street trees. So in addition to that, it also has sort of a geo-referenced data point for where every tree is in our community. So when you talk about things like urban heat island effects, what communities have less tree cover and might be exposed to higher temperatures, this can help us plan where to plant new trees. And then the last thing that this does is it has an ability to export all of the maintenance needs in a table, so Public Works can pick that up and send the crews out and prioritize where to maintain those trees. And all of this is dynamic, so just with, a cell phone, they can go out and every time they maintain a tree, they can update it. When the tree committee plants a tree, they can update it. When volunteers go and see an issue, they can contact us and update it. So it's no longer that concept of print it, put it on a shelf and walk away, and that's a huge step forward for this community.
Kristen, is there a kind of a community science aspect to this tree inventory and dashboard? Can our citizens participate in monitoring?
Yeah, so absolutely, in terms of monitoring concerns with tree health and reporting those, 100%.
So it's not that they go to the dashboard and update. They can report it to who?
They could report it to me. There is instructions on the website for them to take it upon themselves to download an app and report it that way.
Okay.
So there is potential to do that. It's just, it takes a little bit of steps and a little bit of walkthrough. But once you get through it, all the committee members have participated in that way. And another key thing to point out, right now we have over 900 trees that we're tracking and monitoring. When we initially started this, Rockingham Planning Commission, who developed this and did a fantastic job, they were able to bring in 100 trees. Our GIS coordinator was able to pull in all of that historic data that we had from the 2017 inventory, and that was a dramatic difference. So we went from like 140 trees to over 900. So, so it's just been a great collaborative effort, both with the volunteers and town staff and Public Works.
And just a quick follow-up, sorry to keep peppering you here. Can people report trees on their property as well? Or is it just public trees?
Yeah, it's just the public trees. Yeah.
That's kind of too bad.
Well, the beauty of that is, the town doesn't have a lot of authority over individuals' tree, and what individuals do for trees on their property. This committee spends a lot of time developing educational materials, so we do have a way to influence and encourage people to check health before they cut out of fear. But the beauty is it's an asset, and so we need to track it and maintain it just like we do other town assets.
And when you say you're talking about the public trees.
The public trees, and so that's the reason, in my opinion, to really have that hard line, to not have private trees on there.
Got it.
I think another thing that I'd like to point out is that the approval for us last year in the budgetary cycle was for a water truck, a truck to be able to take care and maintain the trees that we've planted. If you looked at every tree that we put in the ground, whether it was a $200 or $300 or $400 tree, it's planted, it's watered carefully for the first couple of years, but it needs to be watched. And we saw, after a wet spring, all of a sudden there was nothing. and with challenged resources to be able to put this very complicated watering truck together, because we've got a team of people, whether it's Parks and Rec or Public Works or whatever, they somehow got it done. They got that thing filled up. They got it running around town probably a week before, the crash came down. There will be no more watering. But had we not been able to do that, the investment we've put in new trees around town would have been severely compromised. And I think it's the kind of thing that when we pay up front and protect what we have, that as we go forward to plant new trees, we're not falling behind the 8 ball. And we have seen some trees that were really stressed. And so, that's the fact that we can call upon Public Works or Parks and Rec for watering tree diapers, that's the kind of stuff that makes working together as a committee solid gold. It's really been wonderful. So I hope that we'll be able to plant, I don't know if we're going to be able to plant trees in the fall. It's been so dry. So there are things that we had hoped to put in the ground this fall that may have to wait till spring. But we're hoping we can keep on adding trees and looking at places that need that shade, need that beauty, need that oxygen. That's what kind of motivates us, so.
And I know when we came before you in prior years, we were encouraged to kind of think bigger. We've been very conservative about requesting additional funds. There is a funding opportunity this year, and so I'm in the process of writing a grant application.
Wonderful.
It's with the Piscataqua Region's Estuaries Partnership, and they have a climate impact grant, which funds things like urban heat issues. And so there's a potential that we could secure $25,000.
Wow.
Which would fund quite a bit of trees and really get us toward our tree canopy goals. So hopefully we'll be back for that.
We can just get the rain to cooperate.
Right.
That would
I
be
know.
perfect, right?
Could you work on that?
One thing at a time.
Well, my money's on you, Kristen.
Yeah,
If anybody can
really.
get a grant
And the
around
committees.
here. Kristen spoke of the work that you've done bringing Unitil and some of the other utility companies together, and that's just been crucial. They attend all of the tree committee meetings, or most of them, and have worked collaboratively with you and with staff. Another one of your accomplishments that I think we need to highlight is the committee working with Kristen on the tree ordinance. And, you were able to pass a tree ordinance a couple of years ago, and that was really significant. You're a committee that not only meets once a month, but you roll up your sleeves and you're actually doing a lot of the work. You're going out and you're checking on the trees. You're going to festivals. You show up at the elections to educate folks, and that's really crucial. You put in a lot of time outside of just meeting. And between Kirk Scammon and Jay Perkins of Public Works, they're always at your meetings, Greg Bisson of Parks and Rec, and their respective staffs are always with you to help you with the plantings and all of that, so I'd like to recognize them as well. But it's just a lot of great work, and we're appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Whenever you talk about the trees, you're on the Swayze Parkway committee, and even when they're talking about their trees, they always consult with you. Any meeting I listen to through Exeter TV, I always hear the interaction of, if there's a tree involved, it's reach out to the tree committee and get their input. And that is invaluable with Unitil. I won't repeat all that, but it really has made a big difference, I think, in the way things are done. So I really appreciate that. I have one question, if I could. On your inventory, it includes our conservation land, correct?
It does not.
It doesn't. 900 trees and it doesn't.
No.
Wow.
It's street trees, basically, and then
Okay,
trees in
just
parks.
street. So imagine if we could, I'm thinking in the future. Well, because just so everyone in the room understands, I think we're still number 2 for conservation land. Is that correct in the state?
I think Durham is.
Durham is number 1, we were number 2. I don't know if that's still the number, but that would be quite a addition to the inventory.
We have a lot of undeveloped contiguous land,
We
which is
really do.
valuable to this
It
community.
absolutely is.
And-
But my point is that we must have some pretty old trees.
We do.
In there, so that's where I was going with that. So maybe someday with an intern or something, we could add to it.
And I know Julie reached out about the 250th celebration and potentially collaborating with the tree committee for some tree walks. The Henderson Swayze is a great example. You can walk in a very short distance and see trees that are easily 200 years old. So you think about when Lincoln was speaking here in the town of Exeter, this tree was there.
trees
And
were
so
there.
I think that, I think there's a ton of information and assets that we can learn from our trees.
And Parks and Rec was doing walks, putting some walks together too, so. Thank you.
When I spoke to Kristen about doing something next year for the 250th celebration of the nation's, of the Declaration of Independence, I talked to her one about whether there's a Liberty Tree program still, or, can we get one for next year? And plant it and they, choose a prominent kind of place to put it. Yeah, put that on your agenda.
Okay.
And then the other one was what we had been talking about, wasn't really reenacting, but we could try the mass tree riot and show, well, at least teach people what were the massed trees
Oh, yes,
and why
right.
did we riot about them. And just so you know, the king had the first choice on the good timber that was in the forest, and the trees were marked with an arrow. Those are the king's trees, and we chopped them down and sent them back to England, and we had a little riot in town that said, no, we're not doing that anymore. This is good timber, we're keeping it.
Get your tree somewhere else.
I just wanted to say that I think too, just the existence of the committee when it started, that now people that come in to develop in Exeter are aware of this and they want to, like, listen through the planning board or whatever to planting trees within their community, because they're like, oh, there's a tree committee, we have to, just that alone, it makes a great deal of awareness and people coming to get educated about how to plant a tree in their yard at all of the little festivals that we go to. That's a lot of people questioning about that too.
And we've even had members of the public have come in and sat in on some of the meetings.
Oh,
in
yeah,
the
we
past. So there's that awareness out there, and the more you come back here, let's make people aware.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
And working with the UNH Cooperative Extension, just for the general public to know, you can have an arborist come to your house and take a look at the health of your trees and identify them. And when I first moved to the house I live in now, there were a couple of trees that I'd never seen before, and one was a wahoo, which is a kind of willow, but it had been paved around a little too closely and was dying. And the other one was this big tree. I had no idea what it was, and it turned out to be a burning bush. And it's a tree now.
No kidding. Oh, my God.
I think it's the mother of all burning bushes in town. But just so folks know, along with the resource we have with the tree committee, reaching out to the UNH Cooperative Extension, which we do pay for in our taxes.
But he comes to your house free.
Yeah, and you can do pH soil tests, and
Yes,
it's
they
great
do that.
service.
As does Jay Perkins. He's our tree warden, and he's a phenomenal resource to residents. They're regularly calling him.
And it's a shame folks don't utilize that before they take their trees down.
Yeah, agreed.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh, I had one more thing.
Sure, please, yes.
I was looking up on our ballots for town elections. We have the weigher, and the
And the bark.
measure of bark and mulch, and there's another one.
Fence.
The fence viewer.
Fence viewer.
And those were all traditional things that we keep on our ballot, but they no longer actually have anything in the RSA, like whatever they did was repealed. But now there's going to be a change to the, what did we just sign, the permit?
What's the
Intent to
word?
cut.
Intent to cut, thank you very much. The intent to cut permit, and I think that we might have a weigher come back because, or the measurer, because we're taking the word of the property owner that they're going to get so much wood out of the trees they're
Yeah, that's
taking
right.
down.
Yeah.
So it might not just be an honorarium.
Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, where is this Champion River birch?
Oh, yeah,
right,
so your
right.
packet also included, and I suspect Deb was involved with this, but we have a champion tree in Swayze Parkway. It's a river birch. It's, what's that? State champion. Oh.
Right.
This is national. And it's within Swayze Parkway, right along the fence line to the sidewalk to Park Street.
Right.
Okay.
But
Setback, it's pretty set back from the water. It's pretty far set back from the water, and it's right on the property line. So the people that own their property have cut down most of the branches that go over into their yard. But this side, and it's just the girth. We've measured it and everything, but it needs a plaque.
And I believe the trustees were talking about ordering a plaque, so I think that's on its way.
Terrific.
Good.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Appreciate all you guys do. Thank you.
If the board will indulge, we have members of staff here who need some approvals, and rather than have them sit through the budget that they probably have already sat through, if we could bring them forward to go over this real quick.
Yes.
So
Yeah, sure. So we're going to go to...
we'll start with Public Works.
Okay.
And I just need 1 minute to get my paperwork. Here we go.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
trying to do.
Page is on.
Sewer fund.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the audience, I'm Steve Cronin, Public Works Director. With me here tonight is Steve Dalton, our Water Sewer Superintendent. We last appeared before you in April of this year to request a reserve fund transfer from the sewer fund in the amount of $40,000 for repairs to Clarifier 1 at the wastewater treatment facility. In August of '24, we took the clarifier offline for some routine maintenance and unfortunately uncovered some cracks in the walls of the tank that were allowing for groundwater infiltration. After some consultation with our design engineer and with the tank manufacturer, we were comfortable moving forward with a repair under warranty. Unfortunately, that warranty did not cover mechanical removal of mechanical components and reinstallation. The $40,000 that we requested in April covered the removal. We're asking for a transfer tonight in the amount of $150,000 for reinstallation of mechanical components. Some of that requires modification of those components in order to get everything back up and running. So it's important that we get this tank back in service so that we can take the other two clarifiers off in the near future to perform routine maintenance on those.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Okay, and seeing none, I would entertain a motion to release $150,000 from the Sewer Reserve Fund in order to purchase parts and contract services needed to reassemble clarifier number 1 so it can be returned to service.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing
I
none.
had a question, but now it's gone. Oh, I know.
Go.
How much is left in the reserve?
Excuse me.
Unfortunately, I don't know that, but I'm happy to get that from Finance Director Stevens when he returns.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bob's here.
Any other comment? We have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. You have a grant?
Yes, grant request tonight. In recent years, there were revisions to the lead and copper rule that required water suppliers to identify all the lead services within their system. That initial inventory needed to be completed by October of 2024. We've done that at this point. We're now moving on to the next phase, which requires us to confirm any services that were of an unknown material type. We've been working with a consultant, Weston and Sampson, to do some of that work. They applied for this grant on behalf of the town to help supplement the cost of the work moving forward. So we're asking tonight for you to accept $60,000 for that grant so that we can enter into a contract with Weston and Sampson and begin the next phase.
Any questions of Mr. Cronin? Seeing none, then, I would entertain a motion to accept a lead service line grant from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services in the amount of $60,000 to the town of Exeter, and to authorize the interim town manager or their designee to sign the associated paperwork with such agreement on behalf of the town.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Thank you.
Mr. Tovey. Good night. You have an exciting request of us this evening?
Yes, I do. Good evening, everyone. David Tovey, Assistant Director for Exeter Parks and Recreation, and I'm here tonight to seek permission in naming the Senior Lounge, which will be located at 10 Hampton Road, the town's new community center, which is nearing completion after former Parks and Recreation Director Doug Dicey. There's a memo in your packet, but for those in attendance and for those watching at home, I will briefly talk about Mr. Dicey's role and service here in Exeter. So unfortunately, Mr. Dicey passed away recently on August 22nd at the age of 87. Mr. Dicey served as Parks and Rec Director starting in 1971 and served as Parks and Rec Director for 32 years in Exeter. He was influential in many major projects in town, including the creation of the Recreation Complex, which is located at 4 Hampton Road. It is a 22-acre facility which features the Dan Healy Memorial Pool, our court sports, Planet Playground, softball fields, as well as soccer fields. He was also integral in creating the Council on Aging, which is located at the Exeter Senior Center. He was also an integral part in creating the Exeter Senior Center, which was formerly the fire station. He was part of the creating the taxi ticket program for senior citizens in town. He served on many boards and committees, including the National Recreation and Park Association. He served as president for the New Hampshire Recreation and Park Association, where he served from 1977 to 1980. And in recognition of his excellence, Doug was awarded the Distinguished Wink Tapley Professional Award in 1984 from NHRPA. One other thing that we didn't get to mention in this memo that we discovered recently is that Mr. Dicey will be awarded a posthumous service award at the USA Softball Annual Council meeting in October, celebrating his love for the sport and 55 years of dedicated service he performed. I unfortunately wasn't able to meet Mr. Dicey, but from those who I've met throughout town and who have met him have nothing but high remarks of him and his wife Jan, who we will be inviting at this ribbon cutting ceremony of 10 Hampton Road. So if there are any other questions, I know there was way more that I am not mentioning in this memo about what he did here in town, but if anyone has any questions for us.
No questions. I'm so glad, though, that you brought this to us, because he was such a good man and he did so much for our community. And it's a nice way to honor and remember him. So.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Of course.
I echo that. I mean, I think this is what a remarkable way to honor such a long-term legacy for somebody who did so much for our parks and recreation for all generations. So I thank you, and I know Mr. Bisson and the others at Parks and Rec that came up with this.
I think one of the things that he started was the Halloween parade.
Yeah.
And involving the high school band to wear costumes in the parade. And it's a very small little parade, but the kids love it, and the band loves it too. And I participated in that a few years, and if you ever come across a picture of somebody dressed as a lobster, that's me.
Oh, keep an
There
eye
used
out
to
for
be
that.
one up in the office, so.
So many things. I mean, I grew up here, I was born here, so yeah, I remember the peanut carnivals and gave me my first summer job at the pool. Just, it's so many memories. He and his wife, both very committed to our community, so, yeah.
Anything else? Well, then I would entertain a motion to dedicate the senior lounge at 10 Hampton Road Multi-Generational Community Center to Doug Dicey by naming the room the Doug Dicey Senior Lounge.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Now, you have a challenge.
All right.
Okay? So before you move 10 Hampton Road, while you're packing up, you've got to look for that picture.
Yes, please.
Got to be somewhere.
I'm sure it's long gone.
Yeah. There's
Was
a
it
lot
in
to
the
go through,
paper?
so we'll keep an eye out for it.
So the then high school audiovisual fellow took the picture and had it blown up. I do have a copy if you want to include it.
Dave's on
Very
it.
good.
Yeah, Dave,
Yes, I got it. Well, thank you all, and thank you for
Thank you
rearranging the
so
agenda
much.
a little
Thank
bit
you.
tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are you prepared to do
The
this
intent?
before we, so we don't forget? what
Yeah,
we're-
sure.
Do you mind
That's
doing
what I think I've got it.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to move, it's a notice of intent to cut. I move for map 65, lot 118 to be approved. Is there anything else you need from that? No, right?
Just a second.
Second.
So motion and a second, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Selectwoman Belanger. And now we get back to our discussion items, and we have the fiscal year 2026 proposed draft budget as prepared by the interim town manager, Melissa Roy, and finance director, Corey Stevens.
Sorry, things are a little tight in here today.
All right. The floor is yours.
All right. Just give me 1 second here.
What about a chair? I'm a vice chair.
Well, good evening, everybody.
Good
Thank you for having me. Tonight, I'm going to be presenting our FY26 preliminary budget. Corey Stevens, our finance director, unfortunately is not able to be here. He is out of the country, but he says that he looks forward to working with all of us. And if anybody has any questions, to please reach out to him. And next year, he's not allowed to travel when it's budget night. No, I'm just kidding. Just teasing. So he'll be back, and we're very appreciative. I would also like to thank his team. His team did a ton of work. One of the things that we have implemented in the last few years is doing more work with our department heads earlier in the process. And sometimes that's brainstorming. What if we did this? What if we did this? Well, guess whose team does all the number crunching of the what if we do this? What if we do that? It's Corey and his team. So they do a fantastic job, and I just want to thank them. All right. Here we go. So, Chairperson Nico Papakostantis already took my thunder a little bit and talked about the budget process, so I don't really need to talk about that too much. But right now, we, like I said, have been starting to look at our budget earlier. We used to, I don't want to say we would wait till July, but we have been able to look in advance, and we've been talking with department heads earlier than that to start getting an idea about what we know is coming down the pipe. So for tonight, we start our budget process. It will go to BRC on Wednesday. It will come back to you folks, and then we'll go to our budget hearings and again deliberative session, which for those of you that don't know what a deliberative session is, it's similar to a New England town meeting. However, our vote then goes out to every resident in our election. Just as a shameless plug, don't forget, Election Day is Tuesday, March 10th this year at the Talbot Gym on Linden Street. So, our budget summary. We are going to talk about our general fund, our water fund, and our sewer fund, plus our warrant articles tonight. We have a fiscal year that begins January 1st and ends December 31st. This year, our general fund for FY26 is being proposed at $27,547,562, which is an increase of 12.64% over FY25. For our water fund, we are proposing an FY26 budget of $4,891,813, which is an increase of 5.54% over FY25. And for our sewer fund for FY26, we are proposing an $8,178,815 budget, which is a decrease of 0.04% over FY25. Our tax rate, as everybody knows, we went through our revaluation last year, and our tax rate in 2024 went down to $4.20 per thousand for our municipal portion of the tax rate. Our total tax rate was $23.60. Excuse me, $17.79, excuse me. When we're talking about our tax rate, the municipal portion of that is about 23% of what you pay in your taxes.
So that's the answer to that question about state and versus local.
So the other portion of that is school, county.
And statewide.
And state. Yep.
Statewide education tax.
Correct. So we do everything that we do on about 23% of the taxes that we bring in, or that you pay out. So what are the major general fund budget drivers for FY26? And there are three major budget drivers. The first is our debt service change, which is about 53% of our increase this year. The second year of our CBA contracts, which are our collective bargaining agreements with our three unions. We have unions in police, fire, and DPW. That's about 17% of our 87% increase. And our reserve for insurances, which is about 17%. We're going to talk a little bit about all of those here. So number one, our debt service. In FY26, our debt service the net increase is going to be $1,636,769 over FY25. We are retiring, or there is about $348,000 worth of debt that is coming off the books. So the three projects that are our new borrowing that are making up the majority of our increase are our police and fire substation that was approved last year. That payment is that bond is $1,664,479. We have our Linden Street Bridge Rehabilitation Project for $175,715. And our Public Works Fuel Island, which was $137,158. These increases to our general fund represent 53% of the increase for this year. So our debt service is driving a major budget driver for next year. The second major budget driver is our collective bargaining agreements. As you all recall, last year we renegotiated three union contracts SEIU Local 1984, which is our public works, our Exeter Police Association, which oversees our police officers, and our Exeter Professional Firefighters Association, which does fire. All of those increases for last year were only for 6 months of the year in our budget, so now we have a full 12-month cycle of those increases, and those increases represent about 17% of the increase for this year. And I will just mention, even with these new contracts, we are still having a difficult time recruiting and retaining staff. We have yet to be able to be under 10 people, 10 vacancies in DPW. We are continuing to have a hard time finding frontline staff in DPW, police, and fire. We are running up against things such as employment incentives or bonuses in some of the other communities. We understand that we can't compete with every community that's local to us, but we really are having somewhat of a difficult time. We seem to, every time we get a new firefighter or police officer, we seem to have some turnover. So we've done a lot of talking. It's not a department culture or anything like that. It's just if you get incentivized by $10,000 or $15,000 to go work closer to where you live, unfortunately, that is a pretty enticing opportunity for some of our folks. The third major driver for FY26 would be our reserve for insurances. We participate in the Health Trust health insurance pool. Last year, we saw about an 18.8, about 20% increase in our health insurance premiums, and we do expect that to happen again. Each year when we go through our budget process, you heard me say that we started months ago, the rates don't get set until October. So as a way to be prepared, we put aside a percentage. It used to be 10%. That happened to us last year. It was 10%, and then it came in at 18%, and we had to feverishly find other ways to cut. So we're seeing the national trend, local and national trend of insurance costing significantly more. So it was made, the decision was made to put in a 20% reserve so that we weren't caught blindsided. Unfortunately, that's 20%, and that's pretty significant. So again, this is another 17% of the overall increase for 26. Some of our other budget drivers are 2025 was a really unique year. For those of you that do payroll and HR, it was a 27 pay date year, which happens once every 11 years. In order to mitigate that, we paid our hourly employees in last year, and then we moved one pay date by 1 day to pay our salaried employees in FY26, and it was a way to help with that. But what you're going to see is in some departments, it looks like there's a big decrease, and that's because we had to budget last year for 27 pay periods, and we're going back down to 26 pay periods. The other thing that the 26 budget includes is a 4% cost of living adjustment for non-union employees. Our union employees, their adjustments are already negotiated. For non-union, we did average, we polled a lot. I nagged quite a few other town administrators to find out what they were doing. We have a step system where each year, if it's in the budget, you can get a step or you can get a COLA. With discussions with Finance Director Stevens and myself, there were some staff that were towards the end of their step opportunities, and to be more equitable to every non-union employee, we recommended a 4% cost of living adjustment so that every employee, non-union, would get the same. All right, any questions about any of those three budget drivers? So I wanted to just take a minute because a 12.64% increase looks pretty daunting. But when we put in the request for all of our departments, you'll see that almost all of our departments were either under budget or level funded or right around what they came in last year, with the few exceptions of our benefits and taxes, our debt service, and the full year of the HR department. And you'll see also one other spike in elections. That's because we had a smaller number of elections last year. So this just shows that they came in percentage-wise. Now, a peak in one department versus a peak in another is a very different dollar amount, but I wanted everybody to see that we worked really hard to come in very close to what we had before.
Yeah, me too.
I'm not going to go over every single department, but I'm going to show you the slide real quick and just talk very quickly. You'll see select board level funded. You guys get a stipend, as you spoke about earlier. For those of you that are in the room, our board members get $3,000 per year and our chair gets $4,000. So it's a little better than the $100 that the state gets, but they probably make negative 25 cents an hour for all the time that they give us. Our town manager is leaving at the end of actually tomorrow. And so we'll be replacing that position. We saw a decrease of 4,750. We have 3 full-time people in that department, and it's essentially level funded. Human Resources has a 13% increase because this is the full year cost of the HR director, where FY25 was just the 6-month cost. So we're seeing an increase of approximately $28,000 in benefits and wages and benefits about $14,000. We did decrease training by $3,000 in that budget. Transportation is a placeholder in case we come across anything. Our legal is level funded. Those are our legal partners, but it's staying at $100,000. Our media and communications is down 2.9%. We established that in 2024, and one of the students' questions had to do with media, and let me tell you, it's been a godsend to have somebody working in that department. So that salary is split 50-50 with the cable fund and the general fund. Trustees of the trust fund is level funded. Town moderator is increased by 116%, and that just has to do with the number of elections, and they make such a small amount of money that it looks like a lot. The town clerk, similar thing, number of elections. We have 2 employees in that department that are SEIU members, so their new contract did negotiate some increases for them. They reduced their conference rooms and meals by 1,000, and they increased postage by 1,000. Elections, like I said, 35%. That was one of the peaks. That was just because of the number of elections. Finance department is down by 1.9%. Decreased training by $2,000, and they did need to put in some dollars for audit compliance services. Treasurer level funded. Tax collection down by 2.2%. We have again we have a SEIU employee that works there, so there were some contract increases on the first full year of the new deputy tax collector salary, and they decreased some training. Oops, I know I'm going kind of fast, but some of these budgets are not super exciting. Assessing is down by 3.6%. 1 full-time person, plus we have a contract with Municipal Resources, Inc., who helps us with office coverage, measuring, listing, abatements, that kind of thing. This is a decrease due to an insurance and benefit change. IT is down 3.1%. However, this is when we get into BRC, you'll see these line items are pretty significant changes. We had a retirement of a longtime employee, so we saw a longtime employee and a restructuring of the department, so we saw a reduction of about $52,000 there. But we are seeing increases about $15K in computer software, $21K in contracted services, $16K in internet services, which were coupled with decreases of about $11,000 in network supplies, $9K in software agreement, and $9.7K in computers. And again, during BRC, and when we bring that back to, we'll get into a little more detail with that. Planning Department is staffed by 2.5 people, and they are level funded, so they have a negative 0.8% increase. Economic Development, same thing, level funded, negative 0.7, with a single person that runs our Economic Development Department. Inspections and code enforcement, negative 0.6% increase, so essentially level funded again. Our building and planning departments support our land use boards and committees, and those are their requests there. They're all, I think, negative except for a 0.1 increase. Police Department. Our police department is one of our larger departments with 29 full-time staff and 2 part-time personnel. The 2026 budget increase of $219,339 primarily reflects the full year 2 of the police negotiated contract. The administration expenses decreased about $4,000. We moved one of our IT contracts that used to be in the police budget to the IT department. So that came out, and you'll see that in the fire as well. But most of the changes here had to do with union negotiations. You'll see staff salaries and benefits increased $40,000, which is about 10%, and then benefits $33,000, which is about 13%. And in patrol, you see salaries and benefits. Salaries increased by $106,000 and benefits by about $41,000. All of those changes happened, and I would say that the chief and the deputy chief, they kept general expenses decreased by $3,000. This is what I mean when I say that we went to each of the department heads and said, there are 3 things we really can't do anything about with debt service, health insurance, and union contracts. And they responded by really doing a good job in submitting very lean general expense budgets. Fire emergency management is an increase of 4.3%, or $191,301. Again, one of our larger departments with 28 firefighters and then 4 administrative staff with the fire chief, assistant chief, and 2 deputy chiefs. Again, same as police, the majority of this increase has to do with the full year of the fire union contract, whereas last year it was 6 months, this is 12 months. We saw in suppression, we see salaries increase by $157,000, or about 7.4%, and benefits increase to approximately $16,000. General expenses increased by $28,000, and the reason we have protective equipment, we had used ARPA money last year. The fire department rotates their fire protective equipment on an every year cycle, and they were very gracious and took that money out last year because you guys were gracious and paid for ARPA, which we should be getting our PFAS-free uniforms very soon. But we needed to put that back in so that we didn't get too far off cycle and that everybody was safe. So that's why that came back. In regards to the turnover that I was talking about, we have an increase in uniforms of about $4,000 because we're seeing new people come in. Education and training, we have we have a few people getting their degrees. And vehicle maintenance at about $1,500. The person that was working in DPW that would help with some of the fire truck maintenance is no longer with us, so we had to put a little bit more in there. In our emergency management budget, we saw a reduction of about $5,000 over FY25, and the education and training was reduced by $1,500. And again, similar to police, we moved a contracted services to the IT budget of $4,300. Dispatch is also part of the police union where they saw increases of their police contract. So they have an increase of 2.6%. This is a department we've really been struggling to staff. We were doing well and then we kind of go up and back, but I give GC McCain And Chief pulling a lot of credit. They keep people coming in, and we just hired someone with about 25 years experience from Massachusetts, so happy to steal somebody. So we have an increase in salary of about $38,000 or 12%. And again, that's that year 2 cost for their contract. And we saw a reduction in benefits of about $20,000 due to an elections change. The health department is negative 5%, and that primarily has to do with our health officer finishing her degree and no longer having that in there anymore. Move to DPW, we're going to go to administration and engineering. They saw a 13% decrease in their budget, and the reason for this is a reallocation. We told everybody we were not going to hire or add any new staff, but it became very clear that one of our maintenance divisions really needed somebody or an additional body. And so what we did was we found a body that we are going to unfund that position, which was the engineering tech position, and move that money over to the maintenance department in order to do a mechanics position. So that's why that's low. And we also had the retirement of our town engineer. Highway and streets in DPW saw a 6% increase. This is also one of our positions where our employees, are part of our SEIU contract, so they have that full 12 months of increase. And we did increase $75,000 in paving, which will put us back up to our 2023 level, which I believe is $700,000. Snow removal. We have a budget of negative 0.1%. This is essentially level funded. Our solid waste line is an increase of about 7%, which has to do with a $125,000 increase due to fuel surcharges and tipping fees. We did reduce by $10,000 what we're estimating we will be purchasing for recycling containers. Streetlights are negative 4.8%, which had to do with our contract a few years back that we redid all of our streetlights and LED. So we have a budget reduced for electricity, reduced by $10,000. We do know that we have some traffic signal maintenance that we have to do, so we did need to increase one of our lines by $3,000. Our stormwater budget is level funded. Our maintenance department general, this is where I talked about that reallocation from DPW administration, the engineering tech position, which wasn't filled and will not be filled. And we're moving it here. And that's where you see the maintenance salary increase of $50,000 due to turnover in the division, the reallocation, and the year 2 of their CBA contract. In the maintenance department, again, we have town buildings, which is an increase of 3.2%. This is the utilities for our town buildings, and we had an increase at the train station due to liability insurance. Our rates for electricity and natural gas do expire on 10/31, so we'll hopefully not have a huge adjustment here, but our maintenance project line is level funded at $100,000. One difference that you can expect is that we presented to the Facility Advisory Committee sort of a joint project, and we'd like to use $50,000 from the maintenance project line to do a facility needs assessment. And the reason for that is our maintenance department wants to wants to continue updating and rehabbing our buildings, but wants to know what their usage is. And so if we know what the building is being used for, then we can put together a better and more accurate description and timeline of what we need to do for rehab. So the Facilities Advisory Committee has voted to approve or support this concept. The maintenance garage, we are down 6.3%. Which is essentially level funded. We had some union contract increases offset by staff turnover, and those related starting salaries were lower than the folks that left at the time. Our welfare human service budget is up, well, our welfare department is up 11%, and our human services request is up 1.1%. This, if you remember, one of our new part-time positions last year was our welfare administrator, and so there was only 6 months of that cost. This is the full 12 months of the part-time welfare administrator. And then the Human Services Committee voted to increase $1,125 in their human services funding, which will go to BRC and come back to you folks. You'll see a $20,000 increase in rental assistance. We are mandated by the state to supply resources and services to the folks that come into and apply and qualify for welfare assistance. And one of the biggest things that we're seeing is rental assistance. So we are required to overspend the line even if we don't have the budget for it. That's our requirement. But Corey, Director Stevens, and I felt that it would be better to increase it by 20 because that is what we're seeing as an actual, and we wanted to get a little closer to what we're actually spending, even though we can go over. Moving on to Parks and Recreation, we're seeing a 7.2% increase in recreation, which is our full year cost for our senior coordinator, which is split 50-50 with the rec revolving account and the general fund. It also is offset by a grant from Exeter Hospital, which very excitingly they just received again. So that will be a year 2, which is great. We did see a change in our benefits, anticipated insurance benefit changes. So that was an increase, but the general expenses are level funded. In our Parks Department, we saw an increase of 14.8%. We have 2 employees that are part of our SEIU DPW union, so there were some salary increases there, as well as benefit changes, but the general expenses are level funded. What happens when you only have 2 employees? The increases look crazy. Other culture and recreation includes such things as the Christmas parade, town decorations, summer concerts, Exeter Brass Band, Veterans Recognition, and 4th of July. We received a request to increase the Christmas parade and lighting by $2,500. Exeter Library, which you know is submitted by the trustees of the library. Their request is an increase of, a change of $66,799, which is a 5.2% increase, which is an $80,000 increase in their public services budget. And they did see some reduction in salaries due to retirement of the longtime library director. Our debt service, like we talked about at the beginning, this is one of our major budget drivers. So it's an 84% increase for the change between FY25 and FY26. We spoke about that earlier, so kind of understand what's going on there. Our fire protection is our line that the general fund can charge the water fund, for fire protection. So when we build something, we build the pipes to deal with fire protection, we can charge that to the general fund. Bob Kelly and some of the BRC folks have been working diligently on trying to get that to an acceptable rate of reimbursement. We moved it up to $130,000 last year. We are recommending that we level fund it. The original plan was to sort of incrementally increase it each year, but with the budget year being so difficult, our recommendation was to level fund it. We'll see how long that makes it through BRC, but. Next is vehicle replacement and leases. We have a 15.7% increase. And that is our 2 police cruisers. Our police cruisers are considered part of our day-to-day operations in police, therefore are part of our operating budget. Last year, I believe, and I apologize for not knowing this, we paid for one either out of something, I apologize, and we had 1 in the budget, so that's the increase because we have 2 in there. And you'll see when we get into budget, the police department has put together a nice memo that explains the life cycle of their vehicles and why it's important for them. Benefits and taxes, so this is our health insurance, dental, all of that. This is where we see that really significant jump of 103%. Which includes our 20% reserve for health insurance and a 5% reserve for dental. We did see an increase in unemployment and other miscellaneous insurances of about $6,000. So that's the operating. Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
I know I talked kind of fast.
No, it was great. Sorry, we put the sleeper hold on all of you.
I know. This is not exciting.
I have a question about the solar array.
Yes.
And whether it's too early to project a decrease in electrical costs for municipal operations.
Correct. That would be too early. So right now, Kristen and Corey are working on selling our RECs and figuring out if that's going to go into the capital reserve fund or if it's how we're going to do that. But we are actively working with our legal team right now to get that squared away.
Got it.
But I will come back with a better answer for that. But it won't be for this year.
So we won't include it in the budget this year, but there'll be some kind of inclusion next year.
Correct.
So it just takes time to put it all together and roll it out.
Yep.
Thank you.
Can I? Oh,
sure.
I just want to throw something out for the kids,
Sure.
just so you understand the budget process that we're talking about. We vote on this as a town in March, but our budget year starts January 1st. So we're already into a new budget year before the town even gets a chance to vote on it. It's a little oddity that I still find mind-boggling, but go ahead. Sorry.
That's okay. Following along the lines of Selectman Chartrand, we're members of the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire, and they have a reserve fund that every town that belongs to it has a reserve. I'm meeting with some of the folks on Friday, so I want to review with them what kind of projects or purposes we can use those funds on, and perhaps we can, I'm just saying perhaps, it's a big perhaps, we can use them for our electric bills or something like that.
Okay. Why don't we talk offline if that's okay, and we'll touch base, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll do that Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay, sounds good. Any other questions about the operating budget? I know that I flew through them because the 3 main budget drivers really did sort of determine where we were before we even started to a certain extent. So each of the departments did a really fantastic job looking at their budget and only asking for what they felt like their needs were to provide the services without cutting services at this time.
Can I say something before you? I don't want to, you're on a roll and I don't want to.
Nope, that's it.
I was going to wait till the end, but I think it's pretty germane right now. That was a great slide that you showed folks of where most of that 12.6% is coming from, and it's 87% from the collective bargaining wages, health insurance, bless you, health insurance, and the debt service, which is essentially those 3 projects, public safety complex being the largest. I just want to reiterate that having worked with you and Finance Director Stevens, and I know we've had the BRC Chair, Bob Kelly, in for a couple of meetings, the department heads worked incredibly hard to make sure that their budgets were as lean as possible. And even, you and Mr. Stevens sent some things back. I mean, this budget has been scrubbed to about as lean as it can be. I mean, there's nothing spectacular here. This is just the operation of making this town function. And unfortunately, this is not exclusive to Exeter, and it's not exclusive to New Hampshire, and it's not exclusive to New England. And trying to retain our valuable staff and first of all, just to retain the staff that we have and not have to cut services to the public is a major goal of mine. Retaining the valuable staff that we have and not allowing them to be poached by other communities is also important, because it costs more to recruit train, uniforms, the whole bit. So even though this number is shocking when you first see it, but when you peel back that onion, these are all things that I think we as a board are incredibly appreciative of the support that the voters have given us over the past couple years, because this is not a new song we're singing. And for the last 2 years, we've talked about the need to increase the wages to make it competitive. We've talked about the increased expense in healthcare, which is driving up these health insurance. And I think 20%, when I look at some other communities in neighboring states, it's going to be even more. And so as future leaders that you folks are going to be, this is something that you'll have to tackle because it's not sustainable. But for now, we have to make sure that our town functions and that we keep and retain our valuable staff. So I just wanted to make the 2 points that you and Corey and all the department heads worked very, very hard to bring in a lean budget. And I want to appreciate the voters who have been behind what we've been suggesting, what we've asked for, and particularly these three projects that make up the debt service. So
we should give some context to just how out of line the 12-point-something% increase is compared to what we normally do. We're normally in kind of the 3 or 4% range.
3 to 4%, or even 2 to 3% pre-COVID. The last couple of years, off the top of my head, it's been in the 7 to 9 range. I think 1 year it was 7, 1 year it was 9. I don't remember which way it went.
Again, driven by retention of employees and health insurance.
And you'll remember last year, and Melissa alluded to this earlier, we in the draft budget, we had something like a 10 or 12% increase for the health insurance, and then in October we got hit, and I mean the amount of money, the extra amount of money was, I mean, just astonishing. And we anticipate that it's going to be even more this year, and the more that healthcare expenses continue to rise, the more the insurance is going to rise.
Yeah. We also have the capital improvement plan, and that we use so that we try to keep that percentage at a doable rate. We have plans that go out, things happen, you have to reprioritize, but it is a very well thought out process. So, yeah.
Okay. So, knowing how difficult the budget was going to be, Finance Director Stevens and I spent a lot of time with our departments on the CIP. First, we had a discussion that said, we just passed a police and fire substation, which was a very expensive project on just the general fund. A lot of our projects we have seen sort of with water and sewer funds. We wanted to thank our residents for that, and we wanted to make sure we weren't putting a bunch of projects that maybe could wait a little bit. So we had a lot of discussions about, is this the year? Can it be pushed? What is the detriment if we push things? And so the CIP has some of the, as you know, the most expensive projects, and like you saw, the debt service can be the most significant. So we really did a lot of soul searching on some of these projects. And so what ended up on here for this year, I'm going to explain a little bit about each one and why they're here. So our first one would be a bond article for the general fund, which is our street sweeper, which is to help our Great Bay nitrogen reduction program. This was proposed last year, and it was the only article that didn't pass. And I'd like to do some clarifying. I got to talk to a bunch of residents after the fact, and they say, oh, it's a street sweeper, it's just to make things pretty. And I said, aha. And I said, well, let me explain to you. If I can explain the process and the project, the reason we have it, what would you think? And the reason that the street sweeper is important is we have a permit that we need to keep our outtake into the river and our nitrogen reduction. And what it does is by pulling up the debris and leaves and everything and not letting it go into our stormwater or into our water treatment, it reduces the amount of nitrogen into our program. And so although yes, a street sweeper back 20, 30, 40 years ago was to make the town beautiful, it is actually a part of our nitrogen reduction program. And what that does is if we can keep our nitrogen numbers low, then we won't have to spend the money upgrading our plant that we just built. So don't worry, I'm not panicking anybody, but there is really a process to this. This is not just a beautification tool. It does help and it does make everything look nice. But it really does have quite a significant, important piece of our program. So that's for $412,000. We do expect this to be a loan forgiveness like it was last year, and we'll know that soon. Next, we have warrant articles. Let's see, so these would be paid, go on to the warrant paid from tax, which would be our Parks Improvement Fund. We are recommending it at $50,000. I know we go back and forth on this, I know, but that is our recommendation for this year. Pearpoint Park, which is our Pearpoint Park Advisory Committee, would like to have an opportunity to ask for $35,000 for design and engineering. It shouldn't say construction, I apologize, that's supposed to say design and engineering of the park. And what they would use those drawings and designs for would be to then go get grants, something like the Land, Water, and Conservation Fund through the state. Our pedestrian improvement project for $266,000 is actually contingent on a TAP grant. So our town planner, Dave Sharples, put in a TAP grant, and I want to say it was for a little over $1 million, and $266,000 would be our portion of that grant, and that would only be spent if we received the grant. And then our library trustees have put in a request for a library building fund for $75,000. Right now, as you know, the library is separate from the town, and when they did their renovation project, there were a lot of new wonderful things created, but there were some things that couldn't be done and that are original to the building. So you'll hear from the library director and the trustees about that. But that's a request that they have. And then we're suggesting that these warrant articles be paid out of by fund balance. We have our ADA Capital Reserve Fund for $25,000, which allows us to go around and continue to work on improving some of our ADA limitations in some of our historic buildings and just our buildings in general. We have a request for a new fire car, number 2 fire car for $67,000. We have a request for a dump truck replacement in DPW for $85,000. We would our snow and ice deficit fund would be replenished with $75,000. Our sick leave trust fund would be replaced with it's been a long day, sorry. $100,000, and our Sester Centennial Fund is TBD, and I do believe I'm having a budget meeting on that on Friday, and I believe they're voting next week on what we expect for that. Yes.
So can you just quickly explain what
What
taking it out of fund balance means?
Sure. So each year at the end of our budget cycle, hopefully if we're doing our job right, we have maybe a little bit extra, and that goes away to what's our fund balance. And every community has a recommended amount that they should have in their fund balance, and the GFOA standards is between 5 and 17% of your operating budget. And so it's essentially an emergency fund that is built off of a little bit of extra, and you have to save it each year. We can, in our financial position, afford to pay some of the requests that came in this year while still keeping our fund balance intact.
So it has no impact on the tax rate?
Correct. It's my favorite thing. It has
money that's already been taken.
And I will clarify that it has no additional impact because we already received the money through taxation in another year. It has no additional impact, yes. Any questions so far? All right, so we don't have any lease purchases proposed for '26. So in summary, we know this is a challenging year, and we've put forth a budget that is true to what our taxpayers have supported at the ballot, while ensuring that we have a community that continues to foster the values and the services that our residents are asking for. Recruitment and retention, like I've said again, continue to be a significant hurdle. You'll see here for proposed for FY26, we have a proposed operating budget of $27,547,562. If all of the warrant articles that we just discussed that were coming from taxation were to be approved, we would add an additional $426,988,000 for a total general fund budget of $27,974,550, which is a 13, if everything were improved for the warrant, would be a 13.55% increase. I'm gonna pause there before I go to water and sewer, which are much quicker. Any questions?
Not at this time. I have tons of questions, but
It's okay.
I'll gotta wait till the process plays out a little bit.
No problem. So we're going to switch to our water and sewer enterprise funds. We have a total water fund budget request of $4,891,813, which is an increase of about 5.5%. The major drivers in the water fund are, again, the second year of these union contracts, an increase in our debt service. Our chemicals, we're finding our chemicals are costing more, whether that's due to tariffs or whatnot. And again, our reserve for our insurance benefits. These are offset by various reductions throughout the operating budget. DPW, all of our departments, but DPW did a really good job trying to find as many reductions as they could. And again, all of our departments did, but they did a great job. So our sewer fund request is a 0.04 reduction from 2025. And while the sewer budget is impacted by the contract and the insurance reserves, these increases are somewhat mitigated by a reduction in debt service. I know I'm reading the slide, which is my own pet peeve, and I'm doing it, so please excuse me. It's late. My brain is starting to not function. All right, so here's a quick snapshot of our water fund. You'll see that administration is down 3.6%. We have billings and collections up 4%. Water distribution up approximately 4%, water treatment up approximately 7%, our debt service up by 6%, our capital outlay up by approximately 1%, for a total of 5.4% increase in our water fund. If we were to go to bond articles for our water fund, it would be our surface water treatment plant design for $2 million. This, we do expect to be an SRF loan through New Hampshire DES. We did find out that $500,000 of it would be 100% loan forgiveness, and the final $1.5 million would be a low interest loan. And for those of you that don't know, we have a surface water treatment plant out on Portsmouth Ave. That parts of it were built in the 1800s, I want to say 1860s, and our water treatment team is fantastic at keeping that building running. However, we do need to, it is time, not quite yet, but it is time to at least come up with our design and engineering of what we're going to do to deal with a new water treatment plant. So that is what that is.
And they have done an incredible job keeping that plant going and cost-saving things that they've come up with and invented along the way, so.
Quick point on this, both the water and sewer enterprise funds do not impact the tax rate. Mm-hmm. They impact the water and sewer rates indirectly or directly sometimes. So the tax rate and the budget that our interim town manager went through, that's the tax rate. Now we're talking about water and sewer rates.
Thanks.
Correct. And then we would put on the warrant the lead service line inventory, which is a federal requirement for $173,000. And then, speaking of our surface water treatment plant, we know that we won't be able to build a surface water treatment plant really soon. So in order to continuously try to keep that going and to the best of our ability, it is time to remove the plant residuals and order in the spirit of trying to get it to go as long as we can. So that's $495,000. Going to switch to the sewer fund. You'll see a breakdown here. We see a negative 3.5% increase in decrease in administration. We have about a 3.8% increase in billing and collections, 4% in sewer collection, a 0.5% increase in sewer treatment, a negative 2.9% decrease in debt service. We have some debt service rolling off and their payments are changing, and I believe it's the sewer siphons and something else that is blanking on right at the moment. The payments changed, so we have a total sewer fund request of negative 0.04% for the operating. If we were to bond articles, we would have our High Street cross-country sewer rehabilitation project for $4,304,000. There is some negotiations on that, and then we hope to have an update on that project soon. Might be a small change. And that is the budget.
Thank you.
And it's late.
Any questions for?
I just want to, can I say one more thing
Please.
for the kids? You guys have been great sitting through this. And I will tell you for the rest of your lives, whatever communities you live in, it's really important to pay attention because you can't really grumble about your local taxes without knowing where the money's going to go. So it's really important. And yay for sticking through that conversation.
Yeah,
So,
it's not the most exciting.
It's not.
Any other questions for Ms. Roy? We'll look forward to a more in-depth presentation Wednesday.
Yes.
I would like to recognize our Budget Recommendations Chair Bob Kelly, who's here this evening, and Vice Chair Anna Grazier, who's here this evening. And we're going to give Melissa just a quick minute because she's up next. The town manager's report, so
This is all I've been doing.
I'll take a brief moment to just, Mr. Jordan, thank you. And, you know, we love seeing your class. Please come back as often as you can. And
So welcoming. Most of them have to go back now,
so please come back and visit. Reach out to us if you want to talk with us, if you have questions. And I just want to thank you in advance for being the future leaders that you're all going to become and tackling some of these issues.
There you go.
Thank you.
You can go online and watch the budget process. It starts Wednesday night.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you for coming. And staying as long as you did. Good for you. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, we're going to tap him for committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks for your question.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was it something?
Happy birthday.
Oh, yes, happy birthday, Anna. Thank you. Good night.
All right. The town manager's report, please.
So, obviously, thank you, Bob. Corey and I have been working on getting that presentation together. So, again, a huge thank you to him and his team. Working with the police department, they got I unfortunately had to miss it, but they got to have all their samples and all that stuff, colors and design things. So that's a very exciting update to the police and fire substation. Continuing to work with 10 Hampton Road. Did another walkthrough. We have another walkthrough tomorrow. Getting the final pieces. That lift, man, that is just we got to get it here. Worked with Park and Rec, is preparing for Powder Keg Beer and Chili Festival this weekend, which is very exciting. And I did deal with some HR confidential personnel issues this week and last 2 weeks.
Thank you. And the weather looks spectacular for Saturday,
Yay.
so it's going to be a nice day.
More volunteers needed.
Please reach out to Park and Rec Director Greg Bisson if you're interested in volunteering. So let's pivot to Select Board Committee reports. We'll start with Selectwoman Gilman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only meeting, well, I had 2 meetings, but I didn't, whatever. I attended a 250 Commission meeting where we started talking about the budget, and we were a little bit handicapped about the assistant town manager working on the budget.
I actually had vertigo that day. I was out.
Oh, whatever. But one thing that came out of it was the committee did vote that we're not going to do any fireworks for 2026. So that takes $10,000 out of the budget.
There you go.
Proposed budget, right? And also they're looking at thematic, what's the word I want? To change our, not to change our purpose, but a purpose statement for people that we can use to solicitate donations. And one of the things that we're talking about within that was what language we want to do is to adopt the theme of the year. And we came up with a couple ideas, but everybody went home to put the thinking caps on. But one was to take words right out of the Constitution, like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, or be more Exeter-centric with a theme such as we've tried, where democracy happens. And then I missed the tax exemption committee meeting, and the HDC meeting had one case for Front Street that was very sensitively done. If you know the nice Victorian gray house with the, I cannot think of any words after 9, with the cupola turret on top. They're making an addition in the back that is really very sensitive to the original building. You won't be able to see it from the street anyway. But we had a good discussion, and the owner was there and his contractor, and the owner suggested, because the contractor knew so much about what our guidelines actually say, the owner said, well, you should volunteer and be on this. I'm there, and I sent him the application while he was sitting there, so hopefully we'll hear from him. And then that, I think, is it. Yes.
Terrific, thank you.
All in 1 week.
Selectwoman Belanger, please.
Okay, so I attended on Tuesday, the 23rd, I attended the election law webinar that the Secretary of State put on. An hour and a half's worth of legal changes, so I won't go into detail. Then I had a planning board site walk on the 25th that morning for the Exeter Presbyterian Church at 73 Winter Street. And then that evening, we had a meeting. We got caught up in our meeting minutes, so that was good. There were 3 applicants that night. All were approved. So Exeter Presbyterian Church, 73 Winter Street, was approved. There was an application for a shoreland conditional use permit on Powder Mill Road was approved, and then there was an application for Eversource Energy for a wetland conditional use permit to perform their routine maintenance. That also was approved. And our newest full-time board member on the planning board, who we just appointed tonight, is already jumped in with both feet and is also on the master plan subcommittee.
Oh, good.
So, and that is it for me.
Terrific, thank you. Selectwoman Cowan.
I have nothing to report.
Selectman Chartrand.
I don't have anything to report.
Thank you both. We had a Pearpoint Park advisory meeting that started with a quorum, but slowly but surely, a few people departed, and we had to cut the meeting due to lack of quorum. Not much to report. They're going to meet again in October, and more than likely will come before the Select Board in November. There's a member of the committee came in not to serve on the committee for that night, to offer public comment, and again, there was a opportunity or a suggestion to just fill the hole, which we've had presented a couple of different times. So the whole committee's going to take that up in October and make a recommendation to the board. The individual who was willing to get some volunteers together to do it was thinking December. The one caveat I said is, if the committee made the recommendation and the board did approve it, he'd have to wait till after the holidays as to not disrupt businesses. So that was understood. So, but more to come on that after the next committee meeting. And other than that, I got to hang out with the interim town manager for a few days here or there.
Oh, I have one more thing that I forgot.
Please.
Thursday, just so everyone knows, is the New Hampshire Preservation Alliance's biannual conference being held here, hosted by the Heritage Commission. If you look at their website, we're going to start out in the town hall, have a little breakfasty thing in the art gallery, a couple of lectures there also using the Historical Society and the Congregational Church. I'll be sitting on a panel of how to make your historic district and/or heritage commissions work, or what we can do to help. And I'll be leading a tour downtown. There will be at least 160 people attending.
Nice. That sounds fun. Thank you.
It's all day, so be prepared.
Under correspondence, we have an abutter notice from the town of Hampton for a public hearing this Wednesday on October 1st, the meeting room of their select board for a proposal for 169 Ocean Boulevard. And we also have notice from Gannett that they are going paperless. So.
Not surprised.
Mr. Chair, do we want any representation on the Hampton Casino thing? I'd like to know why their planning board thinks it's a project of regional impact. I can guess because of traffic and water usage, et cetera. Can look at their minutes. But is there any further representation we want to have?
And we're stretched kind of thin that
I know.
Yeah, I
would probably be a planning.
Why don't you and I, interim town manager Roy and I can talk about that tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be one of us.
Yeah, no.
Right.
We're still stretched pretty thin.
Right.
Well, yeah, we can, Melissa, let's talk about that.
Sure.
Because just so you know, the state's paying for part of it.
Okay. The board calendar. You ready?
I'm ready. They're all in my calendar,
October 14th.
Yep.
October 27th.
which I will not be there.
Correct.
And it's noted, no Molly.
November 10th, no Selectwoman Gilman, right?
Correct.
November 24th, December 8th, December 22nd. Okay,
And we're not going into the new year yet.
not yet.
All right.
And we're not having any last-minute emergency meetings.
No, none of those either.
No
more, no
Please.
emergency meetings. And one quick thing in non-public, so I would entertain a motion to enter into non-public under RSA 91A 32A.
So moved.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please.
Selectman Chartran?
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Gilman?
Aye.
Clerk says aye, Mr. Chair.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. The board will be moving into non-public. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel